If it breaks, it's whatever.
I got a trophy.
If it, yeah.
That was beautiful.
Good morning and welcome to the Life Podcast. You're here with Benjamin,
Hi.
Eric.
What's going on, guys?
And
You said Benjamin and looked straight at me,
And Tyler,
so I got
yeah.
confused.
Oh, absolutely. That's how that rolls.
Self-reference.
Actually, hey, Eric, my headphones just went. So praise the Lord, you got a job security.
There you go.
Anyway, so I'm doing this by faith right now. But good morning. How are you, Benji?
Good morning, Tyler. I can hear you in
praise-
stereo, so that's all that matters, right?
All right.
But
Oh,
there you go.
Hey, up. They're working
You
again.
just you unplug it and plug it back in. That's half of my job.
That is.
Yeah.
Job security. Did it work? You
Yeah.
just look down at the board. You don't touch anything. You pretend like you're pressing buttons.
Yeah.
How about now? Oh, that's much better.
Yeah.
Placebo. Hey, honestly, how many times does that happen? Hey, can you turn up my mic?
Yeah.
Did that work? A little bit more. Oh yeah, that's good. I didn't touch a thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Oh,
Yeah,
now.
it's-
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we having that? Really?
No, my headphones are just like really low for some reason. It's better now. It's fine. It's but yes, placebo effect is definitely something that is real. You know, that idea that medicine has to go through placebo effects too. You have to test medicine to make sure that it's not just a psychological thing.
Yep. Yeah.
I remember my friend Graham's mom. She would buy this stuff called No More Ouchies. I don't remember what was in it, but it was like some kind of like spray. If you had like a scrape or whatever, it would like
Yep.
help it.
Yeah.
And
Water in a can.
Yeah, it was probably.
that's what it turned out. She was like, I stopped buying No More Ouchies years ago, guys. I just kept filling it up, and if you got like a boo boo and you wanted No More Ouchies,
Yeah.
like when we were growing up, a kid is like, oh, you want No More Ouchies here? Like, does it feel better? Yeah, that's good. It's like, okay, you just sprayed that with water.
Yeah. But you'll never know until now.
that mental aspect is very important. Like they say it in medicine in general, where it's like if you're not in it, like if you don't want to live, you will not live. Like if you get a prognosis where it's like you have X amount or you have this thing wrong with you, there's a psychological aspect to that too, where they're not supposed to like say like you have no opportunity to get through this because you can die faster.
Remember, we were talking on the morning show that one day. We were talking about that. This was a true story. I guess there was a doctor, and the test results for two different patients got mixed up. One had they were both there for cancer. One had cancer and one didn't, but that result got mixed. So the guy who had cancer was told, "Oh no, you don't have cancer. You're fine. You're gonna live. Everything's cool." And the guy who didn't have cancer, "Hey, I'm sorry, buddy. This is really advanced. You're gonna die in like 6 months." And sure enough, the guy who got the news that he was gonna die in 6 months, he believed it so hard in the core of his foundation, he died in 6 months. Just because he was like, "I'm gonna die, so I'm gonna die." And the power of your thoughts is so important.
Yeah. It really is. It controls everything. And even beyond, like, just that, like, even when you're sick and you're going, you get that kind of prognosis. But even, like, on everything else, the way you think will dictate how your day goes. You wake up in the morning, you have a bad thought, your day is going to most likely not be the best day. But if you wake up in the morning and you start thinking, like, today's going to be the best day I've ever had, it's going to be a really good day. Because you're going into situations thinking that way. Because when you're interacting with people, right, and your first thought that you had this morning was, this isn't going to be a good day. So you're going into these conversations with this negative mindset before you even start this conversation. But if you come into it with a positive mindset, that other person will receive that subconsciously.
Oh yeah, and enthusiasm is the most contagious thing. Like a good attitude.
Oh yeah.
If you can maintain it in the midst of a bunch of bad attitudes, that good attitude can flip the entire atmosphere.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's so true. Where it's like that's one of the main things with their day-to-day lives. It's like some people say, "Oh, I don't like my job," or "I don't like this thing that I do," or whatever. And it's like, take a step back and say, how are you interacting in that environment? Are you going in already looking for problems? Do you go to your job and you're already like, "Oh God, I hate my job. Like, oh, my boss is the worst boss ever." And you walk in and you're like, you automatically start pointing out issues. It's like you walked in already expecting an issue. So you're making it worse for yourself. If you come in and you're like, even if you do it purposefully, Like if you say, I love my boss, I love my job, I love this, you get into that, you force that psychological thing to happen. You can start, if you start pointing out all of the good things, the small little good things, and you say like, oh, the printer has paper. It's all like, that's a good thing. And it's all like, or when the printer's empty, oh, I got to go get more paper. At least we have more paper. Pointing out those good things, that can change your psychological outlook on stuff.
That's huge. I was listening to this guy, Bill Johnson. I ended up sending it to you guys. And one little thing he said that had nothing to do with what he was talking about. He just went into this little rabbit hole real quick. And he said, you know what? Instead of moaning and complaining and using whatever outlet that you have to complain about somebody, and he was talking about leaders, but like, okay, so say your boss, like instead of your boss, like you go to your other coworker, or you just need to vent and talk about something. He says when you have that urge to go and want to complain, what you do instead is find all the things that you can be thankful for. Because I'm sure that person above you has good characteristics and good qualities that you could say, okay, I'm gonna be thankful for these things first, and then take it from there. And usually that will flip it around right away. Because there's a reason why people our bosses are ahead of you. And you can just be like, I'm really thankful that this person, at least they have wisdom. At least they scheduled this thing well. Or that they're actually, they woke up and they showed up on time for work today. Or that they opened the door so that we could all have a job. I mean, that's a big place to be thankful.
Yeah, and just having that mindset, having a positive mindset. I think so many people nowadays have this inclination to be negative.
Oh, absolutely.
It's
so that's super contagious too. It's easier to grab onto that negative and feed off of a negative vibe within a room. The minute somebody starts complaining, it's so easy to just grab that and run with, oh, this sucks. This is terrible. I hate this.
Yeah, I mean, people love spreading negative news before they spread positive news. There was
turn on the news.
Yeah, fair enough. That like if you have a bad experience at a company, I've read that whoever has that bad experience is likely to tell 20 people about that bad experience, but a person who has an amazing experience with a company, they're only likely to tell about 10 people. So it's just that psychological thing where bad news spreads faster,
and
so people like to talk about bad things, I guess, is where I go with that. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like, I think that shows the level of society that we're in, where we have nothing better to do. Like, we don't have any real problems in America.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, and I say this in an endearing way. Like, in America, we have no problems.
Go to Venezuela. Tell me about problems.
Exactly. It's like, you wake up every day. You are not faced with mobs in the streets or riots in the streets, or like the vast majority of us are not, faced with those things on a consistent basis. Our government is not, like, there's no coups being staged to overthrow our government. We are in a society where we live our day-to-day lives mostly uninhibited. And we want to point out flaws because that's the only thing that we can do.
And you have the freedom to do so. You can even point out the flaws in your own government, and you will not be persecuted or go to jail for it.
Yeah,
that is the beauty of America.
And that whole societal shift where it's all like, the internet specifically loves to complain and loves to be like self-referential and super depressed or whatever. But it's all like it makes a joke. Like, you sent me that picture of, like, somebody sent you a picture of a trash can, like a massive trash thing, and it's all like selfie, and
it was a big dumpster. My cousin ended up taking it on Snapchat. It was a big dumpster with like two like recycling bins or like two trash cans inside of the dumpster. It was like just like a flaming trash heap of trash, and he takes some pictures like, my selfie.
And it's like that concept of like being able to like complain and nitpick every little thing. And we should stop that. We should say, okay, let's be happy.
Yeah, just one day. Just one day, I think that would change a lot.
Well, I definitely want to throw that one in the quiver for when we can come back, like, because you can say to somebody, well, let's just be happy, or just be happy. And it's like, wow, that's easy for you to say. You're not clinically depressed, or
Fair.
you're not going through the situations that I am. We can definitely talk about that eventually. But staying on topic for the show today,
which we have done a great job of.
Oh, dude, we were throwing heavy hits right from the right from the gate. Hey, let's talk about Home Depot. And
yeah, that was how we were supposed to start.
So Benji, please tell us about your Home Depot experience.
My Home Depot experience wasn't really relevant to
any of this.
Yeah. So I went to Home Depot, and So I was going to explain that I went to Home Depot because we were looking into getting some lights for the studios and everything like that, and I wanted to see what Home Depot had on offer. And I spoke. First of all, it took me like 20 minutes to get a person, but it's fine. And this guy comes and he's like, "Oh, what are you looking for?" And I was like, "I need lights." And he's like, "That's very specific." And I was like, "No, I need like industrial quantities of light. Like I need a lot of it, and it needs to be white light." And he's all like, "Well, these daylight light bulbs are really nice." And I was like, no, like industrial qualities light. And so that conversation ended, and I went and I looked like through because I knew we weren't on the same page. So yes, Home Depot does have some industrial quality lights, but we will see what happens.
I guess that segues into not everybody should go to college.
Hey, so you share bad experiences. We'll see how many viewers we get on this one to share this one too. Yeah, no, I mean, just so everyone knows, we are looking at getting some lighting in here so that we can start moving towards video. But we do need better lighting in the studio. So if anyone wants to donate, to this lighting project.
So I was on a scouting mission. That's basically where this all started. Was trying to find lights that are good and bright and white.
Yeah,
because they need to be white. So yeah, that's the thing, and it's like we were talking about this concept. With all of this rolls into what we were talking about yesterday, which was the concept of money offsets time as opposed to offsetting experience. You know, and does anyone want to open with that?
Well, Tyler, I think you kind of were about to.
Well, see, we'll just keep passing the buck around the table.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Benjamin was the one who was cooking up the show yesterday, and he was talking about how time and money they go hand in hand, but there are more efficient ways sometimes than the traditional ways of getting there. Like this common fallacy of everybody needs to go to college. And this can be very controversial, but I was so grateful as we were sitting here and sharing and talking about how we feel. We all do feel. And I was listening to another popular podcast by this guy named Glenn Beck, and he was saying like it's a giant waste of time to go to college unless you need to go to college, like being a doctor or being a lawyer. Something that needs the degree in the specialty of information because people's lives are in your hands. So you're not performing like back alley abortion somewhere. It's really it's not worth going to college and not knowing what to do.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of ways. Sometimes you have to learn the hard way, or at least need to have a mentor in your life to be able to steer you in the right direction. But there are many people in this land of opportunity we call America, in a free market, in a capitalist society, that you have the freedom to become whatever you want to be if you just put the effort in. And we were talking about the easy way and the hard way, and I think it was last show where I was saying, like, you can grind it out and make all the mistakes and learn on your own, but it takes a long time, and it's an arduous process. You could work 90 hours a week to save up that $300,000 for a GT2 RS, and you can get there that way, or you can make passive income by making the right investments, so that eventually you could have the GT2 RS and have mental sanity and extra time to do other things, more profitable things at that moment. But either way will get you to the same path, and that's the beauty of what we were talking about. We're saying it's a common fallacy where, okay, you leave high school, you've been inundated with all of this education for X amount of years. Most kids are completely disinterested in school. Yep. And something that really, like, it got under my skin, if you're at all intellectual, sometimes school isn't always the best place for you. And the kids that are in the highest forms of classes aren't all at the same level. The school grading system favors those who just meet the requirements versus actually have the talent and the skill, and they don't cultivate people who have that level of intelligence. It's like, okay, you could be dumb as a box of rocks and still get an A in an honors course because you just did all your homework and hit par on your test because you manually memorized some information. When it's like, you're this person, like, yo, like, what are you doing here right now?
Yeah.
But anyways, going back, like, to the actual framework of that, if you have this goal in mind, if you know who you are and what you're trying to accomplish, to go and take another 4 or 5 years and $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 of debt on top of your head to not know what you're supposed to do, like, how is that supposed to help somebody in life?
Yeah, and that's the dangerous part. It's not the concept of going to college, or it's not the concept of studying something. It's the concept of I'm going to do it just because I feel like I should.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we get into trouble. I think that that's peer pressure in general for everything. And America has a problem with peer pressure.
Oh yeah.
It just in general. That's for the Porsches, that's for the college, that's for the my son's a doctor, that's for everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's where we have to take a step back and say, okay, what is going on? What am I doing this for? If you're going to college, with all due respect, I go to college, and Eric does too.
I go to college.
I go to college, yeah, absolutely. But I think that it's a very important thing for my field, for engineering, for software engineering. But you can do it without it.
Yeah.
It's just, we were talking during the break, before we started the show, this is a distilled way to learn information in a small amount of time. You take hundreds of years of experience, you distill it down into 4 years, and you ingest it all in one shot. And theoretically, that's a great idea. But if you go and party and you do nothing, that's not a good idea. It's just a waste of time.
Or you don't know exactly what you're supposed to do, so you go and you flit around and you just take like these elective courses
to gen eds,
to fill time. Oh yeah, I'm just gonna do some liberal arts and pottery and not to say that like obviously
I
there isn't
agree.
value if that's the course that you need to take, but most people go and it's like I'm a fine art major.
Tyler, what's your girlfriend's major?
Listen, she is a very accomplished artist.
Artiste.
And she was that she was that anomaly in the case where it's like, okay, well, I have this art skill and there's a place to be an artist and go to college. But I'm saying liberal arts is like, that's such a broad term of how many people graduate college with liberal arts because that was the shoehorn in the door, and I'm working at Wendy's making $15 an hour.
Yeah. Tyler's gonna get in so much trouble for this segment. but that is true. And we'll come back and we'll polish this all up because there's a lot of information here, and we to explain what we're trying to explain has to be said in the correct way.
Yeah, so stay tuned and we'll try to clear this up.
let me tell you how you're wrong or something like that.
Okay, so welcome back.
Welcome back to the show. All right, so we had a little bit of a conversation off mic, and I want to address exactly what we were just talking about because I think that there's a bunch of different ways to do this. You know, you want to go to college, that's good. You know what you want from college, that's better. I'm against going to college out of high school when you don't even know what you want to do. I don't think high school level, I don't think when you're 18 you know what you want in life.
And that's what I was ranting about. So
Yeah.
for all of you who may be triggered or offended from my angry college rant, that is what I meant to say.
Yes, this is a very target. Like if you're in college, like I'm in college right now. Please don't get offended. Don't drop out of your classes. Finish. But if I'm saying like right now you're graduating high school and you're thinking about going to college and you can't go to college to figure out what it is that you want to do. You can't pay somebody $50,000, $60,000, $100,000 to figure out what it is that you want to do in life. And you can't just pick something random just because I want to try it out. Don't try computer animation if you can't draw.
Right.
Or if you that's not where you try it.
Or you don't feel compelled to do, like, if it's like, okay, well, I can't draw, but I really, really, really want to do this. I mean, if you have that innate skill, or at least you want to try, but that thing is so deep within you, I'm not going to discourage that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You can learn anything.
You can, but that's the stuff that you do outside of college.
Yes.
You don't need to pay somebody $60,000 to see if you like something.
To learn if you can draw.
You could do that through mentorship programs. I was saying right off mic, but you could do that through mentorship programs, certificate programs. There are plenty of them around where you can pay somebody $5,000 to $10,000 and be able to afford that and and find out what it is that you like to do. If that's really where your heart lies. And doing it that way, I think, is much more feasible, not only because they won't give you a student loan for that, which is beautiful, and so you have to pay for that. You know, that has to come out of your pocket, and now you're being more invested. When you can get a student loan from our government, and they'll give you this money to go to college, and they'll say, go ahead, and you pay 6 months after you graduate, so don't worry about it till then. We won't even talk about it. We'll pretend like it's not there. Don't worry about it. So now you go through this whole college, 4 years of that, or 2 years, or 10 years, whatever it is. If you're doing 10 years, you know what you're doing. But But you go through 4 years of college and you get out, and now you have this $100,000 bill that you have to account for, but you didn't know what you wanted to do throughout your entire college experience, and now you're 22. I didn't figure out what I wanted to do. I don't know if this is a good number or a bad number until I was 23. I didn't go back to college until I was 23. I graduated high school. I went to work. I figured out what it was in life that I wanted to do through my own mistakes, realized what I wanted to do, and I decided that going to college was going to be the best investment for me to get to where my dreams are. Was it something that I needed to do? No. I can admit that I didn't need to go to college. I chose to go to college because I didn't have the mentors around me to make that happen. So going to college was the best route for me, but it took me time to get to that point. It wasn't like someone told me at 18, I better go to college to go do this or else I'm going to be a failure. No. Because if I would have done that, I'll tell you right now, I wouldn't. There's no way I'd have the GPA I have now. I had to go back on my own accord and make my own decisions to go back to college. But I took the time in between. Now, a lot of people say, oh, you can't go back to college after you go out of high school because like you'll never go back. If you don't go straight after high school, you won't go back. And that's not true. That depends on the person. If he doesn't go back to college or she doesn't go back to college, it's because they weren't meant to go to college. It's not a matter of, oh, they would have done so much better if they would have went to college. No, they would have coasted their way through college just like they coasted their way through high school.
Hit the shelf and fall off.
Exactly. Except they'd have like a ton of debt to pay after that. At least through high school, they didn't have to pay nothing back. So I mean, so that's my perspective on it. If you do want to go to college, just make sure you really know what it is that you want to do and try it outside of college before going into it. You know what I mean? If you want to get into something like business, try to talk to business owners and really understand what that means to own a business. If you want to, or manage a business, if you want to be an art major and you want to be this videographer, get on set on somebody. Now, I'm not saying get on like Hollywood scenes. No, like work with other videographers. There's a videographer on every block. I can guarantee it. You'll find somebody. Go work with them. See what that's like. Learn from people who are doing it first. Decide if that's really what you love to do before you go out and say this is going to be it for me and I'm going to go to college and I'm going to do it and then 3 weeks in you're like, I don't know if this was the best decision.
There's a proverb that says, a man's gift, it makes room for him and it brings him before great men. And you know that your gift will make room for you. And if you go around it and you'll be able to walk into that gift right away. And you'll know. As you were talking, I was sitting back and I graduated high school and I didn't know what I was supposed to do. My grades were horrible because I perfected a system. I was so smart. I didn't have to study for any of my tests. I would get an A on pretty much every test. Didn't do a single shred of homework. And if I did, it's because I cheated. I'm gonna put that one out there. And I rigged the system where first semester I would get like a D because my teachers felt bad. They'd give me a D, be like, give this kid a chance. Next semester, oh, he ain't doing nothing. Here's an F. Get a final exam, get an A. Everything averaged out to like a C minus. And it was like I just perfected that system of I can just get by and be stimulated enough to be able to do this. I walked out of college and that was out of high school, and that was a big thing in my heart. Like, I don't know what I want to do. And I had this passion of making movies. I did 3 years of TV courses and video courses and 1 year of Photoshop in high school. And it was like, art was a huge thing for me. So I always wanted to do that. And I was like, I kind of just have this idea. So I'll just maybe go to college and make movies. I didn't realize that was determining my path, and I actually made a very good decision back in the day when I was like, I'm just kind of settling for this because I don't know fully what I want to do. But you can see now, this is what 10 years later. I've been out of high school, and it's like that same passion, that same thing that I walked out of, I'm still back in. That was a real gift. That was a real thing for me. So that's going to make room for me. And I don't have a formal education, or I have a truncated and partial formal education, but we out here making it, boys.
Yes, absolutely. And to go back to what Eric was saying before, where it's all like, don't pay somebody to figure out what you want. There's a big difference between buying $1,000 worth of camera equipment and paying $15,000 a year to go and figure out if you like something.
Yeah.
I mean, you can buy $5,000 of camera equipment while you work overtime at the bank.
Exactly.
And really develop that.
Absolutely. And that's like a core concept where it's like, all of this stuff has entry levels. You know, everything. With software, it's free. That was the biggest thing with software engineering for me. It was like, there is no cost to getting into software engineering. You have a computer, you write some software, you run it on the machine. It's free. It's just your time. With other things, there are entry-level costs. Like, let's say you buy a camera or you buy something, since we're on that vein. If you think that you want to be a videographer or a filmmaker, invest into yourself. If you invest into yourself, there will never be a bad investment that you can do into yourself.
Absolutely.
And that's where the thing is. There's an extreme of doing that where it's like, I'm going to go to college not knowing what I want. I'm going to go to Harvard and do general studies. That's an exuberant waste of money because there's a reason why that institution exists. It's a distilled form of education for a specific reason. And education has developed in this way over time, where it's like back in Greece, they had groups of people who were studying medicine, who were studying math, and those developed into universities and colleges. And in America, we developed over time where it became like people only went to middle school. And then as the education level grew and the median cost of living grew, people went and got more educated. And the richest people got more educated and more educated. And as that cost went down, it trickled down to other people. So we went to high school. And then people, like, going to high school was the big thing. It's like, if you went to high school, your family had a lot of money because they could afford to have you not work. That concept keeps moving forward when you graduated high school, and the concept of college. The rich sent their kids to college because they were the specialists, they were the doctors, they were the engineers, they were the lawyers. And as that grew and as time went on, we moved the bar so that the next logical step is college. But the thing is that college is set up in a way that it requires the individual to do all of the learning. High school and middle school are hand-holding learning experiences where it's like, you have to pass this thing, because in America, we like an educated population with at least 2 years into high school is essentially what it is. And it's like, you have to pass these up to this level, and eventually that bar will go up.
Yeah.
But right now, in the 21st century, high school is the minimum requirement. College is the extra step. And if you don't know that you want to take that extra step, you're going to be burning a massive quantity of cash for no reason whatsoever. If you want to be a videographer, if you want to be a filmmaker, you want to be a software engineer, you want to be a music maker, spend a small percentage of what it would cost you to do that formally, do it, become competent in it, and not only will that show you that you really like it, but it will also allow you to excel when you go and do the distilled stuff, because you're going to skip over all of those preliminary stuff, all of those classes that are 101 in your field. You're going to skip right over them because you already understand the basic understanding of that thing. And you're not going to be climbing uphill trying to figure out what is going on top of all of the general education studies that you're already doing.
Absolutely. And you got to keep in mind, people, that you can learn whatever it is. I mean, unless it's like being a doctor or being a lawyer, but almost everything else you can learn outside of college. You can learn outside of, you can self-teach yourself, especially now with technology, YouTube, everything else. You can learn pretty much anything you want if you just take an extra time. Does it take longer? Absolutely. Fun fact about me, I actually have never gone to college or to school for what I do for a career as a mixing engineer. Never one day. I mean, I've done a lot of studies and I've researched a lot of my people that I look up to as far as like mixing engineers and everything else. I've learned from them. They don't even know I exist, but I've learned from them.
Same.
And I go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. The thing that you said about that was like, you can learn medicine outside of college. It's like we have resources. The internet is a well of knowledge. It's a well of information. It's like, if you want to learn medicine, the probably step one. I've known people who are like, I want to be a nurse. I'm going to be a doctor, and they're afraid of blood, and they didn't know that until they got into the field and they cut open somebody and in their surgery rotation, and they just pass out. And it's like, that's probably something you should have figured out a long time ago. And it's like, you can learn medicine online. You can't be a doctor, but you can study the basic concepts and say, okay, this is actually really interesting to me. You can learn all of this stuff. We have the resources So
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. You have to do that. You have to do that extra research. It's call it homework if you want before you go to college, and understand like, okay, if this is something that you really want to do, whatever it is, you have to get your feet wet in it a little bit just to understand, does this feel right? Before you go sink $80,000 on a student loan debt and then find out this doesn't feel right. And now you start to pay the $80,000 because that's not going anywhere.
Yep.
And if you don't finish college, you're going to get that stigma on you that you didn't complete college. And you completed college on something that you don't like. If you do get that far. And it's really hard to complete college if there's something that you really don't like.
How many people do you know went to college and do something completely different? I know people who have accounting degrees who don't do accounting. I know people who have formal education in a lot of different fields and are just doing something completely different.
I think it's a big factor of it is the system is broken, and you're saying the bar kept going down. I know we only have about a minute or so left, but really, because that bar kept coming down, and it's almost just like the next logical step, and where society can facilitate, like college is becoming basically graduated high school or like babysitting part 4.
Yeah.
No, because that's the next logical step.
Absolutely.
People, and yeah, it's true though.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Because it really just gets that extended adolescence period of, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can float through whatever money I have or whatever money my parents have. I'm just going to float those 4 years, like I said, and then you fall off the cliff. It's like that just prolongs your eventual flop and failure if you don't have the mindset and if you're not prepared and geared up to go to college for something with a purpose.
Yeah, because there's no risk. Back in the day, it used to be a massive thing. You would see a physical effect of you going to high school when your parents are working on a farm. You said you not being here causes a physical reduction in food. Be aware of that. And that's the concept. We lost that concept when the government write us a check for $150,000 and say, go be a lawyer. And what are you doing? You're partying and you're clubbing and you're doing all this stuff because you don't see it. You don't see the check. The numbers become a concept. It's like if you work and you work for $10 an hour, whatever minimum wage is, and you're like, you see that and you start saying, oh, snap, I pay 15 grand a year to go to college and I have a 1.3 GPA and I club more than I go to classes. It's like that's something that you have to say to yourself, like, what am I doing? We lost all friction. We lost the risk. That's what the core concept is.
Yeah, you get out of everything what you put in. And if you put in a 1.3 GPA, you're going to get back a 1.3 quality of life.
All right, so hold on to that. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back. We're going to talk a little bit more about the broken system and then how to fix it by culture.
Absolutely.
And we'll be right back.
Stay tuned.
College, it becomes like what are you paying for? You don't see the value in it because it's like a credit card mentality. It's like people are dangerous with credit cards. Some people are dangerous with credit cards where it's like, I don't see it, so I just swipe. And that's what we're doing with college, where it's like you don't see, you go to a college campus, and I see this with my friends who are in college campuses. You see them and there's no connection between how much things cost. It's like, okay, it's I'm not going to get into that specific thing, but it's like you miss the value. And if you don't see the value in something, you're not going to put the effort and the time and the willingness to do something. And that changes the whole purpose of the education. The education system is supposed to be set up in the sense that it's like you want to do this thing to achieve a goal. You want to be a doctor. You have to study medicine. It's a very serious thing. You're going to take people's lives into your hands and you're going to do the best that you can.
Yep.
If you don't have that want, that desire to do that thing, you're going to be the worst doctor ever.
Absolutely.
And that is for everything. If you don't have the want and desire to be a filmmaker, but you decided when you were 7, I'm going to be a filmmaker, so now I guess I got to go to college to be a filmmaker.
Right.
You're going to be a horrible filmmaker.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, what's the guy's name there? Something barbecue and foot massage.
Oh yes.
That was a great parody. I love that.
That was beautiful.
Yeah,
Yes.
Viral.
Yeah, but you would end up making commercials like that.
Yeah.
Actually, that's gold. But
Was it Joe's?
yeah,
Joe's
something.
barbecue and
Foot
foot
massage.
Yeah,
Joe's barbecue the fuck is that?
If for all of you who have no idea what we're talking about, look up barbecue.
I'm pretty sure
It'll come right up.
everybody that we're addressing at this very moment has
I
been
hope so.
around on the internet long enough to catch that.
Fair
I
enough.
hope so.
But what you were saying is so true, and we take the sense of achievement out of it, where it's like, okay, well, college used to be a big thing. High school used to be a big thing. We come from a Portuguese-dominated area where it's like the minimum requirement was like, okay, you go to school until 4th grade, and then you go and make your life.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, we go into college, and we get pampered all the way up to college. Most kids barely get a job up until they're in college or out of college, and it's like, I was just entitled into all these things.
Yes. Work ethic is zero. It's so bad. It's so bad.
It's terrible. That's one thing I'm foundationally so grateful for. My parents, my first job, I was washing dishes when I was 12 years old, and I honored that. Like, I mean, my parents made me feel so accomplished because it was like, yeah, you're competent, you're old enough, like you can have a job. We're gonna go to this place like every week, and you're just gonna wash the dishes. It's like, and you'll get money, and you'll know that time that you did that. And you felt accomplished because I was actually accomplishing something and doing something. It's like that pays out to this, and then obviously I got my first like real job. All summers I would work since I was 13. I mean, complete anything, to the point where when I was 15, I co-ran an entire freezer, me and one other guy, at 15 years old. I mean, a full operation. I mean, I wasn't doing like bookkeeping and everything, but as far as responsibility, when you're 15 years old and you're doing something that managers get paid $25+ an hour to do, it really gets you to understand what it is to value something and accomplish something and know that. I mean, I put in a hard day's work, but it was all worth it at the end of the day. Yeah. And we just skate. Like, I think the biggest mistake, I'm not a parent, and please, like, I don't want this to be like a trigger or anything, but I think a biggest mistake that a parent can do is give their child everything. When your kid goes and gets their license, make them pay for their car. Or if you're going to gift them a car, make sure they pay for their insurance and have their own policy right away. And if they have anything that they're going to do, have them pay for it right away.
Absolutely. It creates, an ownership over it. It creates like like I care about this more because I'm paying for it versus this was gifted to me, so if it breaks, it's whatever.
I got a trophy.
That
was beautiful. But yes, that concept of taking responsibility for something, in my opinion, I'm gonna be for real. I think that there's a balance with this. That there's a specific balance where it's like, if you can help in any way that you can, that's a good thing. But there's a line. Yeah. And there's a line of, okay, I'm not gonna subsidize your existence for free. Yeah. Like, I'm not just gonna write the check and just like cash it 24/7.
Well, if you can see the correlations, like I will give you the best leg up, and that's the beauty of America. And we talk about that being, to stay away from being a political podcast, but we call that, like, in society right now, like, white privilege, because you are entitled to be able to go to college or you came out of a different income bracket. That's the beauty of America, is like you can give something to your children, or even going back to Hebrew culture, far behind, inheritance to the children and your children's children, to be able to set them up for the next generation. It's like, oh, well, everybody should start at ground zero and have absolutely nothing. That's the pleasure of a parent, to be able to pour into that child's life, to say, hey, I'm going to give you that foot up. And if you're learning that accountability, and if you're learning that the appreciation for the aspect, or the value, because I know what it is to value $1. Here, I will give you a little bit more because you're not ungrateful and you understand the concept behind this thing, instead of you're entitled into all these things and it's like, okay, well, I got it and I don't appreciate any of it because I never learned. Go.
Absolutely. And I think that's based off of, I've had this conversation so many times, this specific conversation, but it's like this idea of America doesn't really have the concept of inheritance. So if you look at Nordic countries like Sweden and Norway and Denmark, they're very, very based off of inheritance, where it's all like the eldest son and the sons, they get what the father had, and that's their starting position. And because America isn't really like that, we don't have a lot of inheritance-based stuff. it seems like society is based off of this concept of I need to suck as much as I possibly can while this person is alive so that I can then utilize it for the rest of my life. And that's where we've gotten to the concept of like, oh, I just charge it on my dad's credit card type of thing, where it's like I live at home till I'm 45 and then my parents drop dead and then I move and I get my own thing. You know, because like we play like zero sum in America, where it's all like most people are like, I die with $0 in my bank account. Like that's it. Like my death is calculated.
GG.
Yeah, GG. Like if not negative. Like it's like I die at the perfect time when my bank account hits zero and that last check cashes. That's it. I'm done. And we don't leave anything for the next generation. And because of that, everybody has to, the society pulls while it's still there, like they pull while people are alive. And that entitlement comes from that type of concept, or at least that's what I attribute it to.
That's a good point. And another important aspect, I mean, this is kind of like coming from a different angle, but it's important to understand, going back to like going to college, you know, that everyone's unique. You know, your needs are unique from everyone else. So don't let other people pressure you to say you have to go to college and you have to do it a certain way. That's not ever true. You're very unique as far as like what whatever your career is, whatever you want your career to be, there it is. Whatever you want your career to be, there is a unique path that you need to take to get there. You know, and if that means that you have to go to college to do business to get to a certain point, and then you finish that and you realize, I kind of want to add to that and go to college for an art now. Now that I have the business under my belt, I want to go for an art to really understand the art craft there. That's okay. People are going to tell you that's not good. That people are going to tell you, oh, you don't know what you're doing. You can't let that idea of judgment, of people judging you and your decisions, to stop you from doing what you have to do. You have to remember that this is all very unique. So one of the biggest things I could say, though, and I wish I would have taken my own advice if I would have told myself this before. It is absolutely okay to go to college if you pay your way through.
Yes.
Avoid the loans. And then you can go to college for whatever you want. I don't care.
Yeah, that's amazing. The loan is the sinker. It's the anchor around the next person's neck if you don't have the outlet to be able to pay for it afterwards.
I mean, we're talking about people dying, perfectly when not having, any profit to pass down to their children, and most of them are dying with debt. Let's face it, our generation, a lot of it's going to be dying with a lot of student debt.
So before we get too far away from that, I think the distilled concept of what you just said can be summed up in one sentence. It's like, you're not a failure if you didn't go to college. Or you're not a failure if your steps to success did not look like the system, because the system is flawed.
I know a lot of people my age who I went to high school with who make a lot of money as electricians and plumbers. There's also this stigma against working with your hands, the stigma against owning a car shop or being a farmer or doing all of this stuff. There's this stigma against manual labor in America, where we have this idea of, I got this, I'm better than manual labor, like my hands are nice and soft. It's like that concept of like, I work on a computer all day, or I work in an office, or I work at a cube farm. And it's like, we have to look at it and we have to say, there are many paths to success. All of them require hard work. All of them require endurance. Yep. All of them require consistency. If that means going to college and being a doctor, I agree with what you're saying. If you can go to college without debt, do that. If you're a doctor, if you know you want to be a doctor, I understand that there's a massive investment that has to be done. And I don't have a problem with investing in yourself if you're not burning money. Of course, we can't see where our life goes. Like the guy who I know through my boss, who was going to be a pilot, finished pilot school, learned that he was colorblind, red-green colorblind. They just never asked him. So he's a certified pilot who cannot fly commercial airlines. It's like because he's red-green colorblind. And it's like, we never know certain issues are going to come up. But the idea is, let's make an investment in yourself. That if that investment is time, you're going to go be an apprentice at an electrical firm or a plumbing firm or a mechanical firm or whatever, do that. If that means I'm going to say I'm going to take $60,000 and I'm going to invest in myself, If that's what you want to do, if that's what you feel a calling towards, do that thing. It's just don't do something because Eric told you to,
Absolutely.
or because Tyler told you to, or because Benji told you to.
Or your friends are doing it.
Yes. Don't pick a college based off of where your friends are going.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah,
make
that's a big
decisions.
one.
That's probably that is probably one of the worst decisions possible.
Absolutely. Don't make a decision in your life that's going to affect your life. You're going to pay $3,000 every month until that $60,000 is gone. Be aware of that. Look at a friend and say, this friend told me he's going to this college. I should join him. And I know that I don't want to do what he's doing. Think about that. Say, for the rest of my life, I'm going to pay on that $60,000 because this person wanted to do something with their life and that person dropped out 2 months in. And now I'm stuck with $60,000 worth of debt. Don't make decisions based off of other people. And that's your parents too. With all due respect to all of the parents out there, I love my parents. If my parents wanted me to be whatever, and I knew that that wasn't what I wanted to do, and I knew that I wasn't going to do that thing, why are you going to leverage your dissatisfaction, your unhappiness, just to appease somebody else?
Right. And that's so huge too. And a lot of parents like to push that will of like living vicariously through their kid because they weren't able to do that certain thing.
Yeah.
And that's really big. I was sharing with you guys around the coffee machine, and this is a wonderful, I guess you can call it a testimony of my best friend growing up. He was my next door neighbor, and he is an amazing success. And I really admire him for how he conducted his life, because we were walking the same exact path, and I really got messed up doing drugs and getting into partying, and I wasted my life for the first, like, those formidable years, being 18, 19 years old, or even, I mean, before that in high school too, but it bled in, and he said, no, I got to put my bootstraps on. I'm not going to go to college. I'm not going to be a lemming. I'm going to go to a 2-year technical school, or like a 1-year technical school. He was in school for like no time.
Yeah.
He was like, okay, I'm going to go be a diesel mechanic. I love being a mechanic. This is my calling. We were part of a Jeep club. We would build Jeeps together, so he knew, like, he already had hands-on training. Like, I built 3 full cars. Like, I know this is what I want to do. Got a certificate in diesel mechanic. They flew him out to I think like Colorado or something to like further his education so that he could go the next level up. He got cherry picked by Cummins right out the bat, right out of school, making $35+ an hour. It's like with a company car. He took that. He said, okay, I'm gonna take whatever money I have right now. He probably paid it all off because he'd been working since he was 14 years old too. I mean, he had awesome opportunities right from the get-go. It's like, okay, well, now that my college is already paid off because I did a 2-year technical school, I'm going to take all this money, I'm going to invest. He bought 2 houses. He bought trucks, and now he has that passive income to be able to live that American dream while he still works his normal job. And his wife does daycare from the house because the house can facilitate a genuine incorporated daycare, like an LLC daycare.
Yeah.
But that's just that blows my
awesome.
mind too. They were so smart.
That's unbelievable.
And I mean, he has, like I was saying, he has dump trucks, and he finds retired drivers who want to work part time and sends them out, and has passive income coming out with overhead, and he's qualified to fix whatever's going on.
Yeah.
So it's like I can upkeep these trucks without any overhead cost.
Yeah.
Besides parts.
And we have to keep in mind that we understand that not everybody has these opportunities, and there are a lot of people that, as we speak a lot, and maybe even a lot of our listeners, and let's open this up a little bit. And I want to give like a really solid question here. So let's say, you weren't born with these opportunities. You were born into a family that, never really laid a good groundwork, and you were born into like a welfare system, and you're 16, 17, 18, and you're stuck in this that you don't have the mindset of like, I can do anything in the world. Okay. And so now college is a question, but there's so much going against you. There's a lot of friction there because of the system that you had no option on growing up in. We live in a city that there's a lot of that. What do you recommend?
I'll give you 20 seconds. My mother is a prime example of that success story. She grew up moving all around the country, living on welfare. I mean, my grandmother, until she passed away, she lived on welfare her entire life. My dad doesn't even remember ever seeing her have a job, ever, since he knew my grandmother for like 20+ years. My mom lived in the projects her entire life, and she got out. And I think that's the beauty of America. It's a motivation, and wherever you start, it's not how or where you start. It's
about where you finish.
It's how you finish. Exactly. And if college is the road, it might not be conventional, like, oh, like I need to go to college right away. I mean, there are scholarships for that. And that's the beauty of America, too, is there is the land of opportunity. There are these opportunities. And if you can't get the scholarship when you're 18 coming out of high school, plan B. I'm going to first get out of the ghetto, save all my money, be motivated, and take steps in that recalculated route fashion to get to where I need to be, because that's where I've made my mind up. My mom said, I'm going to be a success. I'm not coming back to this place. I am getting out of here, and I'm going as fast as possible in the opposite direction so that I have a sense of accomplishment in my life, because really it's down to you.
Absolutely. You know, and I'm not speaking from a place of experience, because I don't have experience in that type of thing, but it's very important to see that the only thing that you can change is your attitude and how hard you work. Those are the only two things. If you go in and you make decisions in your life, we all make decisions in our lives. When you say you see that new pair of shoes and you say that's $50 that I don't have, you have to say no to yourself. You have to say no, and you have to work harder. And this sounds very cliche and canned and everything like that. And Bill Gates said, you don't decide if you're born poor. You decide if you die poor. And that's a core concept where it's like, you work at McDonald's. Work harder than anybody else. When there's downtime, grab a mop. I don't care if it's not your job. I don't care if you're a cashier. Grab a mop, start cleaning. Ask your boss when there's downtime, when nobody's at the cash register, you ask your boss, what can I do? That's it. If you have the mentality of, while I'm here at work, I am going to generate the most income for my boss, that's it. America is built off of generating income, generating value. If you show your boss, I can generate you more money, you will be paid more money. That's how it works. That's it. If you show your boss, I do the work of two people, you will be paid the amount of work for two people. Probably not at McDonald's, but somewhere. If you come in, this has happened to me. You work in a place and you show the willingness and the effort and the desire to work, and you have a happy face and you're not looking like you want to die, people will offer you jobs in other places of work.
Absolutely. And that picking up a mop, my dad taught me right from the get-go, and I've seen it influence my relationships in places where I've worked for other people. And you can sum it up in one sentence: you're never too good to sweep the floor.
Absolutely.
You start off sweeping the floor, you're never too good not to sweep the floor, even if you own the company. At the end of the day, the minute you think that you are too good to sweep that floor, you've lost the whole game.
Absolutely.
That and the phrase, that's not my job.
Oh, yes.
I get so aggravated.
Yeah.
That concept, and I say this to my boss all the time, and he says to me, and my boss is great, and he says, I know that's not really like your specialty, but do you mind doing this? And I say to him all the time, I say, you pay me to be here. If you tell me to watch paint dry, you're paying me to do that.
Yep.
However you want to spend your money
Yep.
is up to you.
Yeah.
I am here for X amount of time. You tell me, go sit over there. I'm going to go sit over there. I'm getting paid. It doesn't matter to me what you're asking me to do.
And well, you're cultivating being an amazing leader too, and I can see that, where it's like to know what it is to be a good leader. It's to be subordinate and to know how to follow those directions. If you're paying me to do this job, I'm gonna do it exactly the way that you tell me to do it. And that's a big thing too. Play within the rules that are defined.
Absolutely. And control what you can control, and just be aware of that. Oh,
come on!
I heard
come
the
on.
ducks, but
keep going.
All right, yeah. So be in control of what you can be in control of. Like we talked about it last episode. Make your bed in the morning. Get your vision board right. Those are the things that you can control. Those are the things those small steps really add up in the long term. Being able to stay disciplined to yourself and be able to wake up every morning and know that like you understand where you are, and it might not be the best place. You know where you want to go, and you think about that all the time. Trust me, that bridge will be gapped if you do all the small steps. Wake up in the morning, make your bed, wake up early, be that great employee at your job, have a job.
Step one.
Step one, to have a job. Be a great employee and work hard. Nobody has gotten rich unless you're born rich, but nobody has earned their riches from not working hard.
Where we have 30 seconds, I wrote a show note, and I think it really closes out the show perfectly. Being a stubborn human being, if you can harness that stubbornness to have your mind made up on something that is positive and profitable, that is one of the most powerful tools, because you cannot break somebody's will when they have their mind made up.
Mm-hmm.
Have it determined in your mind, I'm going to be a success. I'm going to make it. I'm going to get out of the ghetto. I'm going to get out of this poverty mindset. I'm going to get out of wherever I am now, and I'm going to accomplish this goal come hell or high water. Whether anybody else likes it or not, that's where I'm going.
This all comes back full circle to the first thing we said on the show. Your mindset will control your day.
Mm-hmm.
Stay positive, and your mindset will also control your future. There it is.
That's it. That's what it is. You decide it.
Mm-hmm.
This is your opportunity. Do it. Just do something, and that's it.
Thank you for listening to the Life Podcast Show. We really appreciate all your support. We meet every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday morning just to talk and share our perspectives on everyday life situations. If you haven't already, please share this with your friends and give them a chance to join the conversation. Also, if you liked what you heard today, rate our podcast. The higher the rating, the longer we can keep this going. And a special thanks to our future sponsors that will soon partner with us on this journey. If anyone would like to contact us, please email us at thelifepodcastshow@gmail.com. One word. That's thelifepodcastshow@gmail.com. Be blessed and have a wonderful day.